Brian Jack, you're running for Congress in Georgia's 3rd Congressional District. You're here with us at 11 Alive now. Thanks for coming by.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's an exciting time. We've got only a little bit of time left before June 18th, and I hope everybody that's watching gets out in Georgia's 3rd Congressional District and votes in this Republican runoff on June 18th.
Let's start with this. Why are you running for Congress?
Well, I think we have a unique opportunity in our district. The congressman announced his retirement back in December, and I think it's imperative that this next Congress, as somebody who's been endorsed by President Trump and has worked for President Trump for quite some time, I think our district wants somebody that's going to go up and fight for that America First agenda. And given my experience with President Trump and everything I've done, from working in his White House to ensuring that he's the Republican nominee for president, I think I'm uniquely qualified to be an incredibly effective voice for our district and an incredibly effective voice for the America First movement.
You're currently in a runoff right now. You finished just a few percentage points shy of that 50% hurdle on primary night, forcing this runoff. Your opponent has a long history of service in the state legislature. What sets you apart from your opponent, and why should voters choose you over him?
Well, I'm privileged to have received 47% of the vote in the first round, and nearly doubling my opponent. I think he got about 22 or 23%, and that's an affirmation of our district's response to my message. I had a very positive message throughout this campaign. I'm proud of it. And I also think as it relates to experience, you know, working by President Trump's side for the last 8 years has been a very unique experience, and one that's afforded me a chance to see how he transformed the country, and one that gave me a chance to do it myself for those 4 years working at the White House. I worked with President Trump to secure the border. I worked alongside him to ensure we passed the largest tax cuts in American history, and I worked with him to appoint and confirm conservative judges. So I'm very proud of that record of experience. And I haven't run for office before. I'm not a politician, and I think that gives us a unique chance to elect somebody new, somebody different, and somebody that gives a fresh voice and a new generation of conservative leadership.
You mentioned you spent 8 years working side by side with President Trump. How long have you lived full-time in the 3rd Congressional District?
I've considered the 3rd District my home my entire life and was proud to grow up in the district. I went to Woodward Academy just up the road, played sports there, and I got my first start working at Peachtree City Hall. It's my hometown, and there's no better place to start than working on the Planning Commission of Peachtree City. So very proud of that, and look forward to raising my family in Peachtree City.
If you're sent to Washington, if you win this race, what's your #1 priority?
Well, I think our #1 priority going forward is the border. I mean, we have an open, porous border, and in my mind, that's in large part done because Joe Biden sees there being political advantageous perspective to having that open border. So I think we've got to do everything we can to secure the border. I think that we've got to do everything we can to cut taxes in 2025, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in this interview. A lot of the Trump tax cuts that I helped pass expire. We've got to make those permanent. But I also talk a lot about weaponization of justice. We've got to do something about this two-tiered system of justice that's all across our country, and we saw it play out last Thursday in New York City, and I want to do everything I can to fight back, to push back, and ensure that never happens again. I'd also later on like to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence and some of the stuff that we're seeing, new emerging technologies that I think this next Congress is going to have to grapple with.
Let's talk about immigration for a moment. On your campaign website, you talk about furthering former President Trump's plan of building a border wall and other immigration enforcement measures. Data from the Pew Research Center indicates that border crossings, illegal border crossings, surged during President Trump's administration, as well as the current surge we're seeing under the Biden administration. Is that data an indication that this is a problem that requires, how to put this? Is it an indication that this is a problem that defies one simple, easy solution?
So I think when we look at what we did during the Trump administration, we had some very unique things that we did that Joe Biden instantly reversed. So first and foremost, you mentioned the border wall. We built over 470 miles of border wall, and I was President Trump's point person to help execute that across the administration to ensure that we could find that funding within Congress to fund the border wall. I think more border wall should be built, and the existing wall should be reinforced. Because I think you'll find the data will show wherever that wall is, you don't have border crossings, illegal border crossings. And I think secondly, when you look at some of the policies that we effected in the Trump administration, when you talk about asylum and people seeking asylum, for us, we had a Remain in Mexico policy. If somebody wants to seek asylum into our country, you should not be given a one-way ticket to the city of your choosing within our country, a taxpayer-funded ticket that enables you to go wherever you want to go and you come back and have your hearing adjudicated 3 years later. We had folks remain in Mexico, and we can use, this next Congress can use the power of the purse to effectuate that. And lastly, I'd like to talk about catch and release. Joe Biden has a policy that catches and releases illegal immigrants into our community. We saw that happen in Athens and some of the crime that runs rampant across our state and our city. But at the same time, when you look at those policies, we can reverse some of the policies of the Biden administration, have that more secure border, and we can stop this incentivization structure that exists in our country today that encourages illegal immigration, which is one of the reasons why we find 17 million illegal immigrants in our country today.
You've touted both through this interview and in your campaigning your close relationship with former President Trump. What policies do you disagree with the former president on?
Well, as somebody that helped him do all of his policies in the first 4 years of the administration, I'm proud of everything we accomplished and very proud to have earned his endorsement and support. He's been incredibly loyal to me, and I'm very grateful for that. And as it relates to what we can do going forward, I think that there are so many challenges that are coming into our society today, new and emerging technologies. And one of the things I look forward to President Trump talking about on the campaign trail this fall, and something I'd be more than excited to help him legislate on going forward, is artificial intelligence. I mean, we've got to do everything we can to ensure we harness the positives, but make sure that we protect our most vulnerable citizens from some of the negatives that can come from that.
Do you support continued foreign aid to Ukraine and to Israel?
I've talked about this before. I don't think the district supports additional aid to Ukraine. I think they want to see aid going back to the southern border, ensuring that we secure the southern border. Earlier in my career, I worked both in Atlanta and across our country, helping strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship. And I think there is a moral imperative to ensure that we protect and strengthen our strongest ally in the Middle East. And I can assure you that what happened last October never would have happened if Donald Trump were in office. And I want to do everything I can to ensure that we recognize and realize that relationship and the power thereof.
Why is there a moral imperative to continue to financially support Israel but not Ukraine, in your view?
So I think that at the end of the day, my hope is for the Ukraine situation, when Donald Trump's elected, as he said before, that'll end on day one.
How?
And well, I think you're going to find that the leaders that are involved in that both respect him, respect his power, and respect his ability to negotiate deals. And so I trust his ability to do that. When it comes to Israel, they are our strongest ally in the Middle East, and they are somebody who we work very closely with to ensure that terrorism doesn't come into our country and do what they did in 2001. So I'm very encouraged by Congress's appetite to be supportive of the U.S.-Israel relationship, and I want to do everything I can to effectuate that going forward.
Let's shift gears and talk about some other policy issues. Abortion access has been a major issue across the country and here in Georgia, especially since Roe v. Wade was overturned. If you're elected, would you support federal legislation restricting or banning abortion access?
Well, I think what we did, and first and foremost, I just want to remind your viewers, I had a chance to help appoint and confirm not just those 3 U.S. Supreme Court justices during my time in the White House of President Trump, but also over 230 federal judges up and down the federal bench. And I'm very proud of that, and they interpret the Constitution as written. And as we saw in 2022, something that most scholars never thought would happen, those judges interpreted the law as written and gave that power to the states. And here in Georgia, we have state legislation, and it's strong state legislation that protects life, because I am very pro-life, and I'm proud of that ability to have played a small part, but an important role in ensuring that we nominated and confirmed a court that interpreted the Constitution as written.
You're, I think, referencing Georgia's so-called heartbeat bill, right? Do you think, and there are those who would argue this, some critics argue that it's not the role of government to legislate how somebody accesses medical care. What do you say to those critics?
Well, I think that we have a state legislature for a reason, and a lot of those powers that are not enumerated in the Constitution should be given back to the state legislatures to ensure they're the ones, because more often than not, your state representatives, state senators, those are the folks that represent smaller constituencies and in theory would be more in tune with what's going on at the most local level. So I'm very proud of the fact that, again, we nominated and confirmed those conservative judges and justices, and ultimately I think that's the most important thing, is that we give the power to the states to legislate on this, and as we've seen here in Georgia, we've got very, very strong pro-life legislation.
Your campaign website touts your support of working towards a balanced budget in Congress. You also talk about, on your campaign website, reducing taxes and cutting government spending. To reach a balanced budget, if you're going to cut taxes, tax revenue goes down. You've got to also cut spending. What programs would you cut?
Well, I think you've got to drastically reduce the size of government. The federal government is a bloated bureaucracy in a lot of different ways, and one of the problems we find, and I talk about this a lot on the campaign trail, is we should do everything we can to start moving departments and agencies outside of Washington, D.C. When I worked for President Trump in the White House, we moved big agencies out into the western states and to other states across our country, and we found incredible success with that, because invariably you're not only going to find employees that come from balanced areas. You're not going to be recruiting from a workforce in Washington, D.C., which is 95% Democrat, but you're also going to find good conservative legislation and policy going forward. We should do more of that. I noticed that it was successful because on day one, Joe Biden yanked those departments and agencies back to D.C. We should do everything we can to move departments and agencies outside of D.C. I would love to see the Department of Agriculture move down to Georgia or a southern state. I think it could give a lot of economic development, but at the same time, too, I think you'd have an ability to potentially reduce the size of government when you're moving some of these agencies outside of D.C.
The November election is a rematch between former President Trump and President Joe Biden. You were involved with the Trump administration from day one to the final day. The ending of former President Trump's time in the White House was a controversial one. I want to just give you this opportunity now to answer a question on a lot of folks' minds. Do you believe that Joe Biden is the lawfully elected president?
I don't think there's any way that he got 10 million more votes than Donald Trump when I see how he's governing the country as he is today. And ultimately, I think that we've got an opportunity this November to elect a president, somebody who is experienced, somebody who had a record of success over 4 years, and somebody that's not going to embarrass us. I mean, we're talking today, I saw Joe Biden was in Normandy to honor World War II veterans and rushed off stage for whatever reason nobody knows, and didn't have a chance to honor those World War II heroes that did everything they could, their friends laid down their lives to ensure that our freedoms here in our country and across the world were maintained. So I think one of the things that I am excited about going forward is the opportunity to contrast these policies, and something I hope to do if I'm elected the Republican nominee for our district. If you look at the policies that Joe Biden has promulgated over the last 3 years, and you look at Donald Trump's policies on every single issue, the voters are with Donald Trump and they're with what he did before. I think we're going to have a landslide victory this November, and I'm excited, I hope, to play a part in it as the Republican nominee for our congressional district.
And I want to make sure viewers don't get away and think that that answer was ambiguous, so I'll put it to you again so it's right down the middle for you. Yes or no, is Joe Biden the lawfully elected president?
Well, he's the president right now, but I think that if you went back and you didn't have all the changes we had during COVID, Donald Trump would have won in a landslide, and I think he's going to win in a landslide this November.
We talk a lot about sort of the issues that are right in front of us, but I also want to give you a chance to touch on more long-range issues. Being in Congress involves working with a lot of different people. It's coalition building. It's looking ahead past the urgent crises of the day. If you're elected, what's going to be the biggest priority for you over the next decade?
Yeah. Well, I talk a lot about emerging technologies, and it's something I think I'm uniquely qualified to potentially dig into and make sure I've got a good impact, and that's artificial intelligence. I mean, there's incredible opportunities with that, but I think I see and I feel across our congressional district a real concern about what these technologies can do. Whether that be voice manipulation, you've got people calling senior citizens in our district, mimicking loved ones, saying, hey, you've got to send money here, send money there. I'm very concerned about that. We've got to protect our senior citizens. I also worry about the future of education. You know, if kids are relying upon AI to write school papers, as we jokingly see on social media today, type in and write an essay about the history of 11 Alive, or write a history about Boston, your hometown. You know, you're not going to get the experience that you and I got coming up and going into the library and doing it the hard way. So I worry about some of the technology there, but also recognize there's incredible opportunity as well. So I think this next Congress is going to uniquely be in a position to ensure that the harnessing of that technology is done in a positive way and not a destructive way for our society.
Do you support current Speaker of the House Mike Johnson's continued speakership if you were elected?
Well, he's been fantastic for me, and excited to have the relationship that I have with him. He's been very supportive of me, but at the same time, you know, we'll see what goes on. We'll see what happens. I'm hopeful that we have a Republican majority going forward, and of course, if we do, I think he's earned that right to continue to lead. But that having been said, I at the same time too recognize there's a real concern. People want to see Republicans in Congress move the ball forward on conservative policy ideas and conservative policy wins. We can do that if we elect Donald Trump this November and elect an ally like myself to represent our congressional district's voice, represent their interest, which is wildly supportive of Donald Trump, and do everything we can to ensure that we have a good and solid and successful first 2 years of his administration.
Brian, what did I miss that you want to bring up here?
Well, I think we talk a lot about weaponization of justice, and it's something that's very real and something we saw what happened last Thursday. And it's concerning to me because you're starting to see, again, the Democrats try to throw everything they possibly can at the wall, see what happens, because they don't want to defend their record. One of the things that I've done on this campaign trail, and I'm very proud to have done, is run by far and away the most positive campaign of any of my opponents. And I think in doing so, I afforded myself an opportunity and a chance to earn their respect. As we moved into the second round, all of the folks on the ballot, third, fourth, that finished in the first round endorsed my campaign, because I think they see that I'm somebody, and I appeal to their voters, but more importantly, that I'm somebody that wants to legislate from the heart and do the right thing. And my concern is that you're not going to find this November going forward that juxtaposition between our policies and their policies. They're going to try to do everything they can to distract from Joe Biden's record. I think it's indicative and reflective upon us, and I applaud you and 11 Alive for going into these issues. You should talk to candidates about the issues, what their policy prescriptions and solutions are, because if you don't do that, you give way to an uninformed electorate. And I also want to encourage everybody to get out and vote, because what I see and what I expect in this election is very low turnout. There's very few other races driving turnout in this contest. We should have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. We should have a majority of people in this district voting in this election. But what we're probably going to see is a very low turnout election. So I encourage everyone watching this program in Georgia's 3rd District, go out and vote. Election day is on June 18th.
And I do want to touch on one more thing, because you bring up, as you call it, the weaponization of the justice system. Does the fact that jurors are selected from a broad pool of potential jurors, and attorneys both for the defense and the prosecution have ample opportunity to strike jurors who they think will be unfair, having gone through that system and seating a jury in New York, does that fact make you think that an impartial verdict can be reached in cases like this?
Well, I think it's hard to get an impartial verdict in that case when you're dealing with the President of the United States, the most well-known person probably in the country, if not the world, and you're working out of a kind of constituency. Manhattan was 88% Democrat constituency for Joe Biden. So I struggle to see how that could be a fair trial and a fair jury. And ultimately, I think if you look at how the judge conducted himself, it was very concerning for everyone. And we'll see what happens on appeal. I have every faith and confidence that President Trump will appeal that. But ultimately, I think it's by design to ensure that they can distract from again, we have 2 records to compare. We had 4 years of success with Donald Trump. I was proud to work in the White House with him in doing so. And we've got 4 years of failure with Joe Biden. Should be very clear this November for your viewers.
Brian Jack, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.